Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us this afternoon. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where I get to bring you the latest news from across the continent of Africa. And today, being a Monday, I do have so much in store for you. And we start our bulletin from South Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said on Sunday his ruling African National Congress ANC was determined to fight against crime and corruption after a series of graft scandals have damaged the party's popularity. Ramaphosa was speaking in Bloemfontein at celebrations to mark the ANC's 111th anniversary. The day is used to outline the party's program of action and set the tone for the year ahead. It is also known as the January 8th statement. Ramaphosa, who was re-elected as ANC leader in December, also said that ending blackouts and solving the energy crisis is one of the party's top priorities. He has conceded that load shedding was harming the country's economic growth. South Africa is currently on stage 3, power cutouts. We head over to Mali, and Mali's junta leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, pardoned all 49 Ivorian soldiers on Friday, whose arrest in July triggered a bitter diplomatic row. Malian citizens have praised the decision. The soldiers have returned home. They did so on Saturday night, and tensions are now subsiding between the countries. On December 30th, 46 soldiers were sentenced to 20 years in prison, while three among the original 49 who had already been freed in early September received death sentences in absentia. They were convicted of an attack and conspiracy against the government and of seeking to undermine state security. Public prosecutor Laji Sarah said in a statement at that time. The trial opened in the capital Bamako on December 29th and concluded the following day. The court proceedings came in the run-up to the 1st January deadline set by leaders from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, for Mali to release the soldiers or face sanctions. Mali's junta had branded the troops who were detained after arriving at Bamako Airport on July 10th as mercenaries. Ivory Coast and the United Nations say the soldiers were flown in to provide routine backup security for the German contingent of the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali. All right, and then we go to Ghana. American rapper Meek Mill is currently trending on social media after a teaser of his yet-to-be-released music video showed scenes of him at different places at Ghana's presidency. The rapper had on late Sunday, January 8th, posted on Instagram reel announcing that he was set to release a new track. Local media reported in his short video, Meek Mill is seen in different places at the presidency. I think that is the official residence of the president, known as the Jubilee House, from the frontage through the main corridors in the main conference hall, at a point positioned behind the presidential lantern, and later in a seating area rapping. Meek Mill was in Ghana in December to perform at the just-ended Afro Nation concert over the Christmas holidays. However, it seems Ghanaians are not happy with the location of his video shoot, as many have dragged the president and the rapper on Twitter. And then we go to Malawi. The government has made an appeal for support to help fight cholera outbreak that has so far killed hundreds of people. The outbreak began in March 2022 but has become acute lately. It has spread to nearly all Malawi's 28 districts. In a statement, the government appealed for support in medical supplies and support to schools' sanitation facilities. It also appealed for chlorine, oral rehydration salts, and cash. But the announcement has been criticized for urging potential donors to contact the national coordinator through a Gmail address instead of an email address with the government domain. Now, the UN mission in Sudan on Sunday launched a second phase of negotiations between military and civilian groups to end the political crisis that followed the October 2021 coup. The United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in Sudan, UNITAMS, said the signatories would today begin a 4-day conference to consult on 5 issues in the Political Framework Agreement. Civilian and military signatories of the Political Framework Agreement, civil society groups, academics, private sector representatives, and religious traditional leaders will attend the talks on the 5th of December. The former ruling coalition Forces for Freedom and Change, an allied political group, signed a framework agreement that provided for a 24-month transition to begin once a prime minister is appointed. However, powerful pro-military Islamist groups and pro-democracy activists in the country have rejected that deal. Head over to Somaliland, and the self-declared Republic of Somaliland has confirmed that oil has been discovered in the Salahay area of Maro DJ region. Its Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources said in a statement posted on Facebook. The ministry said it had launched scientific investigations after black liquid spilled from a water well drilling site in the area, and the result has confirmed the oil discovery. This is the first confirmed oil discovery in the area. The statement added that the UK firm General Energy would start further oil exploration and production. I'm not surprised. We'll talk about it. Let's just finish with the news. The discovery comes 2 weeks after the Somali federal government warned General Energy against oil exploration in Somaliland without authorization from Mogadishu, saying the firm was undermining its sovereignty. Somaliland, which declared independence from the South in 1991 and has since been unsuccessfully seeking international recognition, said the statement from Mogadishu was meaningless. The latest from the DRC is that the streets of the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital Kinshasa will undergo a makeover from Monday ahead of Pope Francis's visit at the end of the month. Kinshasa Governor Quentin Gompila says the main city center will be spruced up with street vendors and abandoned vehicles removed from roads connecting to the Kinshasa International Airport. Last month, the city experienced the worst floods in years that left more than 120 dead. This is the first time that the city of at least 14 million residents will be hosting Pope Francis. A previous pope, the late John Paul II, visited the country twice in 1980 and 1985. During the rule of former strongman Mobutu Sese Seko, Catholics make up the majority of the country's population. Voters in Benin. Votes are being counted in Benin after voting in Sunday's parliamentary elections. The AFP news agency reports that voter turnout was low. Opposition parties took part this time after having either boycotted or being excluded from other polls in the recent years. Parties winning more than 10% of the vote will share out of the 109 parliament seats, that is according to the country's proportional system. And then we go to Zimbabwe. Police say they are investigating allegations of violence against the opposition. This comes after a video was widely shared on social media showing that what appears to be a gang interrogating and assaulting people holding an opposition meeting. The incident has raised fears that this year's election will see a repeat of some of the violence that has marred previous polls in Zimbabwe. In the video reportedly filmed in Murehwa, northeast of Harare, a woman interrogates a group of people and castigates them for supporting the opposition. An elderly man is then held down on the ground, and as men beat him repeatedly with wooden poles. The punishment is carried out in front of a young child. The opposition Citizens Coalition for Change says this is one of the many pieces of evidence that shows that the governing ZANU-PF party has unleashed vigilante groups ahead of elections. A ZANU-PF official in the area has distanced his party from the attack. Rights groups have often accused the government party of using systematic violence as a tool to win elections. Head over to Nigeria, and gunmen armed with AK-47 rifles abducted at least 32 people from a train station in Nigeria's southern Edo state. The governor's office said on Sunday the victims were mainly people waiting to board a train from Igweben to Warri in neighboring Delta state. Reports say the gunmen had shot sporadically into the air during the attack on Saturday evening before seizing the hostages and taking them into a nearby forest. In a statement, a state spokesperson Chris Osa Nehikare says the train station has been closed as security forces and local hunters search for the hostages. Eyewitnesses say some of those who escaped from the attackers sustained bullet wounds. The gunmen are also said to have released 2 children. A woman with a baby also reportedly escaped from the attackers and found her way to a neighboring community where she was rescued. The incident comes as Nigeria prepares for next month's general election, where rising insecurity has become a big campaigning topic. Last month, the rail service between capital Abuja and the northern city of Kaduna resumed operations after being closed for 9 months. The Somali government and the Al-Shabab militant group have each denied having peace talks. The denial came Saturday after Abdul Fattah Kasim Mohammed, a deputy defense minister and a member of parliament, said the militant group had requested talks with the government. A senior government official later officially denied receiving a request from the militant group. The militant group has also denied the existence of any talks with the Somali government. A website affiliated with Al-Shabab said the deputy defense ministers claimed that the group requested talks is baseless. The Al-Shabab official further ruled out the possibility of talks with Villa Somalia, the seat of Somalia's government. In the past, the group has expressed distrust in opening dialogue with the Somalia government. In January 2018, the group's official spokesperson, Ali Mohammed Rage, known as Ali Tere, said dialogue is more dangerous than the weapons of mass destruction. And still staying with Somalia, the president, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, has called on young Al-Shabaab fighters, he says, are brainwashed to surrender to the government amid ongoing military offensive against the group. His remarks came after the militants carried out 2 attacks on government forces in Somalia's central region in 2 days, killing more than 43 people, including senior officers. He said he wants to tell the boys to return from the wrong path they are taking and urge them to return to their government, to their people and to their religion. He said every step they take from now on will only increase their guilt. The president's message comes as Somali forces backed by locals continue battling the group in the total war. He declared on the militants. Government forces have liberated large areas of territory from the group, mainly in the south-central state of Hirshabelle. Speaking on a state run television in Mogadishu, Somalia Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Bare said an investigation is underway into soldiers who were arrested on suspicion of facilitating the Al-Shabaab attack on the Villa Reis Hotel in Mogadishu late November. Bare did not say how many soldiers were involved. He says all the soldiers who were working that day have been arrested and investigation is currently underway. He also added that he wants the ongoing investigation to be successful and impartial. The hotel attack claimed by the militant group Al-Shabaab killed at least 13 people, including 5 Al-Shabaab attackers. The popular Villa Reis Hotel is located near the presidential palace in Mogadishu and is frequented by senior government and security officials. Now let's go to South Sudan, and the over 700 South Sudan People's Defense Force soldiers who departed Juba for regional peacekeeping mission are yet to cross to the Democratic Republic of Congo through Mundri in western Equatoria State, says Army official. Army spokesperson Major General Lal Ruai Kwang says the peacekeeping soldiers are currently in Mundri town, where they are processing their travel documents before crossing the border. The SSPDF officers, comprising military police, military intelligence, signal corps, logistics, and infantry, to be part of the East African Regional Task Force to fight against the M23 rebel group. Fighting has been raging in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo as the M23 rebel groups make territorial advances, sending tens of thousands of people from their homes. The M23 rose to prominence in 2012 when it captured the main eastern city of Goma before being driven out and going to ground, but it re-emerged last year, late in 2021, claiming Kinshasa had failed to honor a pledge to integrate its fighters into the army, among other grievances. And still staying with South Sudan has relaunched its bid to relight a new constitution a decade since the first attempt was scuttled by civil war. but the attempt could be marred by bickering by top unity government leaders over appointments. President Salva Kiir signed the constitution-making process bill in 2022 into law in December, paving the way for the establishment of a team of drafters who were to put up a proposed supreme law within 2 years. The new law allows restructuring of the National Constitutional Review Commission, the team set up 10 years ago, but which must be retrooped to reflect current realities. President Kiir, according to the new law, needs to appoint the team in consultation with coalition partners under the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, RARCSS, the peace deal that helped end the civil war in 2018. Now, the deal brought into government 5 main political movements: the Transitional Government of National Unity, TGONU, led by President Salva Kiir, SPLM-IO, led by the first Vice President Riek Machar, SPLM, former detainees, and then South Sudan Opposition Alliance and other political parties. But as the country prepares for the important milestone, President Kiir and Dr. Machar last week clashed over the sacking of a top regional state official, indicating unsealed cracks in their unity government. And then we end with news from Ethiopia, where the relationship between Ethiopia and the U.S. are looking up again after Washington nominated a diplomat to serve as ambassador to Addis Ababa nearly a year after the station was left in the hands of the juniors. President Joe Biden has nominated a senior State Department diplomat, Ivan Jose Masinga, as the new U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia. If the Senate approves, Mr. Masinga will fill the post of Ambassador Extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the U.S. to Ethiopia, left vacant about a year ago. The previous U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia, Get Parsi, left the post in January 2022 after serving for less than a year. Tracy Ann Jacobson has been serving as charge d'affaires, a diplomat without the full powers of an ambassador. The relationship between Ethiopia and the U.S. had become frosty in the last year after Washington tried to pressure Addis Ababa to hold dialogue with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the rebels who had been fighting the Ethiopian government forces since November 2020. Ethiopia was expelled from the U.S. African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA duty-free state scheme at the beginning of January 2022. AGOA provides sub-Saharan African countries with duty-free access to the United States. You are now up to date. Okay. All right. Michael Irwonya, you're saying killing means nothing to African leaders. So painful. Okay. Who did what? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So you are now up to date. I guess the news that I've just brought us there's not so much good news that is happening. Okay. So the U.S. and Ethiopia government seems to, working on their diplomatic relations back, and President Joe Biden has nominated the new ambassador that will be heading to Addis Ababa soon, should he be approved by Senate in the U.S. In what amazes me, and I think this is a concern that not just, I think I've raised it here so many times, but not just me, but the manner in which the conflict in Ethiopia and what we saw transpire, and how countries like the U.S. responded to that conflict in how they chose to deal with the Ethiopian government. Should this have been just another country here in the continent that these Western countries have had a problem with before, trust and believe, they would have almost cut off all the diplomatic ties with what was happening there in Ethiopia. Major atrocities took place in Ethiopia, what even could amount to a genocide. A lot of people were killed in Ethiopia, and the conflict that raged for 2 years. And what I see is just a slap on Ethiopia's raised, and that is that. And I think it is the double standards in how, especially the country like U.S. chooses to respond to some issues that baffles me. We have a country like Zimbabwe, and I keep making reference to Zimbabwe because that country is one of the heavily sanctioned countries we have across the world, in the leagues of North Korea and others. And when you look at what is happening over the same claims that some other countries get to do but still get away with human rights abuses, what happened in the Tigray region was atrocious. And yet, what the U.S. just did is expel, Ethiopia from AGOA, which I know now that they are working on the diplomatic ties, Ethiopia will be brought back to AGOA after all have been said and done. But if that was another country, things would have been different. So I think for me, that is the disconnect, that is the hypocrisy, that shows the double standard that these countries implore or use as far as their interests are concerned. And I would understand why, because Ethiopia is just one of the key partners in the Horn of Africa with the US. It is a very strategic partner for them. So that, would let you know the reason why they are handling this matter the way they're handling this matter. But it is unfair. It is unfair, all things considered and all things remaining constant. I think we can't just assume that things that happened in Ethiopia did not happen. There has to be some level of accountability, but nobody's calling for that. We're just going to sweep things under the rag. Eritrea will just pack its things from its army officials from Tigray and just go back to Eritrea. And the mediation process happened, and then we have another section of Ethiopians, represented by the OLA, still feeling as if they have grievances that they need to address with the government, but they're not being heard. You have not solved these problems. If these issues have not entirely been resolved, then there will be an undertone, and who knows, probably we've just postponed another genocide, or we've just postponed another civil war that might prop up or come up, years later. So anyway, let's just move on to South Sudan. And President Salva Kiir has he launched a new bid. He relaunched a new bid to write a new constitution, a decade since the first attempt that was scuttled by a civil war. South Sudan got its independence in 2011, and then 2 years later, in 2013, the country plunged into a civil war that has made it very unstable. So it is understandable why this constitutional making process has really taken this long. And President Salva Kiir signed the constitution making process bill 2022 into law in December, paving the way for the establishment of a team drafters who were to put up a proposed supreme law within 2 years. Now, I know this is one of the key requirements in this thing we keep seeing here, the Revitalized Peace Agreement of 2018. And as I've told you here before, this was like a working constitution, a working document that was meant to help South Sudan in its transition, even as they embark on their constitutional making process. I'm shocked that it has taken this long, but then again, I'm not very shocked because of what has been happening in South Sudan. There are very important articles, in this Revitalized Peace Agreement that is truly anchored in setting South Sudan to a path where this country can move forward. But in the pace in which these articles have been implemented, a lot is just lacking. So South Sudan has been operating without an official constitution. So now President Salva Kiir has embarked on a constitutional making process. Of course, this will take 2 years. Remember, South Sudan, now they say they'll go to the elections next year, God willing, the end of 2024. They were supposed to have had it last year. Before that, it was supposed to have happened, I think, before that. So they've kept postponing this, election. So I think election is a key thing here. So now if this constitutional making process is starting now and it's meant to go for 2 years, what I need to know, is there an enabling environment that can actually enable a constitution making process? Because I saw ours here when we were going through a constitution making process, the one that was promulgated in 2010, it was quite a tedious, involving process that required the attention of even the people to know what's really going on, and the input of the people itself, and the way it was organized, and the civil society, and all these people brought together. I don't know if South Sudan, the way it is right now, it's able to really encompass what it is that it takes as far as a constitutional making process is concerned. First of all, you need a stable environment to do this thing. Do we have that in South Sudan? We have a continued communal fighting conflict ongoing right now. It's active in the Jonglei region and Pibor administrative area, among other areas. So this has made it very difficult for the country to just focus on other challenges that has to do with security. So that is something that they have to look at before they can even settle on a constitutional making process. But I think it is a good thing. I think it shows that the country is moving forward. He said he's relaunching. I don't know if they've started yet. I don't know if they have identified who will lead this process. But I think the terms of this constitutional making process were well spelled out in the revitalized peace agreement in one of the chapters there. But as I say, that has not been able to take place because of what has been ongoing. So I'm just hoping that this is not just one of those other things that will make them postpone the elections again from next year to, I don't know, God knows to what time. But I suspect even this 2 years that has been given for this constitution making process, it might take longer than that. I'll be following to see when they'll settle down, how that team will start working. And, they've said 2 years, so I'll start counting. I'll be busy, counting the time. But I can tell you, I can almost guarantee you that even the elections that they've set out to take place next year, initially they'd said this year, then they changed their mind to next year. So next year is still, I guess it's still next year. We're still in the new year, right? So they have a good amount of time to prepare. So I don't know if it will be easier for them to prepare for the elections, and then they're going through the constitutional making process. I don't know if they'll be able to do all these very important things at the same time. But the world is watching. The world is watching. And even with that, the Pope is going to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Remember the other trip that he cancelled because he had a knee problem, I guess. You saw him even during the funeral service of the late Pope. He was just on his wheelchair. So the Pope has been having a problem with his health, and specifically his knee. And so he was meant to visit South Sudan and then the Democratic Republic of Congo. But from the news that I just read to you, it has only been confirmed that he will be visiting the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital, Kinshasa, and that is meant to happen towards the end of this month. So now the government is engaged in cleaning up the city, sprucing up the city as they get ready to welcome the Pope. And of course, the key thing that is taking the Pope there, I think the concern that with this renewed violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, and of course the key concern that was making Pope also to go to South Sudan, is also the conflict that has refused to go away. Remember, these leaders of South Sudan had taken spiritual retreat to the Vatican in 2019. You remember when the Pope kissed their feet, begging them in the hopes that they will get some sense and maybe put the country first and work for the betterment of the people of South Sudan. Now, you would think that. But that went out of the window. Immediately they got back to Juba and they went back to their bad behavior. So it has been a stalemate. Nothing much has been done in terms of moving that country forward and just finding peace and just implementing these important things that they're meant to be implementing. Have they been able to achieve just a little bit of what they're supposed to be doing? Maybe. But even with that, even with the unified forces, have you not seen the insecurity in South Sudan increase? So what is really happening there? So back to Kinshasa, I'm mixing up everything. Now the Pope is coming, and the reason why he's coming is the renewed violence in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And the reason why the Pope is coming is because a Catholic Church is a very influential institution in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in a country with a population of over 70 million people, over 35 million of this population, they are Catholics in the country, representing about over half the population of Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, the impact of the Catholic Church in the DRC is difficult to overestimate. And it is believed that the Catholic Church, normally they refer to it as the only true national institution apart from the state. Besides involving more than 50% of the population in its religious services, it has a number of schools that it is supporting there, and have educated over 60% of the nation's primary school students. Over 60% of the DRC's primary school students are being educated under the Catholic Church, and more than 40% of its secondary students. And the church owns and manages an extensive network of hospitals, schools, clinics, as well as many diocesan economic enterprises, including farms, ranches, stores, and artisan shop. And that is why you remember, even throughout especially the last election, I saw that happened in December 2018, where even the Catholic Church did not, they said President Tshisekedi did not win the election. Remember, President Paul Kagame brought that up the other time, and Martin, that is the official opposition leader, Martin, is it Fayulu or Fayulu, was said to have won. And according to the Catholic Church, this is the man who had led the polls. And then I don't know what happened, and before you know it, President Tshisekedi, together with a candidate who had come third, and that candidate was the flag bearer of now the then President Kabila's party. So they merged together because they had the majority, I think, in the Senate and all that. And so they merged together with Tshisekedi, and before you know it, Tshisekedi was announced the country's presidential winner from that poll, which is very controversial. Even the Catholic Church spoke about it, and the Catholic Church is its voice matters in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that's why I think Pope is using the influence of the Catholic Church, and him being the head of the Catholic Church, to come and see if he can try and perhaps persuade these actors who are involved in this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't know, perhaps he should also extend his visit to Rwanda, because Rwanda has been accused a lot, so that we're able to talk to everybody. And then now, perhaps you can get a wholesome peace. But the Pope is preparing to go to Kinshasa by the end of this month. Hopefully he will be in good health this time, so that he doesn't get to postpone that. Now, this issue, I'll just gloss over it, of Meek Mill, this American rapper that was allowed by the Ghanaian presidency to use its facility to shoot a music video. Can you imagine? I don't know, a Kenyan rapper. I can't remember. I can't think of a name right now. Maybe because I don't listen to rap music a lot. But can you imagine just one of them using White House facilities to shoot a rap music video? Just wrap your head around that. See, you can't even. So the fact that the presidents in Ghana thought it was a good idea to allow Meek Mill, a very controversial rapper, to come and shoot a rap video, I'd like to see the content of that rap video. But normally, you know what they sing about. Things that have nothing to do with, it's just sex and crime and drugs and all these things. So if that was the content, I don't know the content of this song, but if that, most likely it's very close to those things. And this is what he was singing at the official residency of Ghana's presidency. That is a mockery to a very important institution. So I would understand why Ghanaians are pissed off. I would be pissed off. I can't imagine even just a normal rapper here going to State House here in Nairobi, the official residence of President William Ruto, and they decide, well, maybe they could do that now. But can you imagine? It will not even be allowed. you know. And so I think sometimes we have to put some respect in some of these institutions that are very important as far as our country is concerned. Just respect that office and just respect what that place holds as far as, you know, the leadership and the importance it holds within the society of Ghana. So Ghanaians are annoyed. They saw McMill just running all over the place, you know, at the entrance. There's a place where he even went to the official president, I guess, seat or something, and I don't know if he sat on the table. I don't know. Now I'm looking to see this video. I'll look at it and see, but he will release it soon, so I don't know if he'll be able to release it now that Ghanaians have made so much noise about it. And back to South Sudan. I'm going very fast because I want us to look at a lot of these news items before, you know, my time is up. Now, there's over 700 SSPDF, that is the South Sudanese People's Defense Forces, are already waiting to go to enter the Democratic Republic of Congo on a peace mission. I think we've made noise about this. And as much as South Sudan's government has a responsibility within the East African community to also participate in this decision that was made in sending the troops in the East African Regional Task Force. You know, the members are contributing forces to go there. But also I think that for the timing, South Sudan, I think, has so much to deal with, especially even within its security itself. So the timing, as much as I think I can understand, you know, they have a responsibility. So they are supposed to do that. But the timing, I think, is just off at a time where South Sudan has its own insecurity problems to deal with and to handle that is completely out of control. And then you have some soldiers to spare to take to another country. And then the last time you were having this conversation, I think the head of that mission, or I don't know, the Ministry of Defense or somebody there was saying that South Sudan soldiers are going there to ensure that people in the South, in Democratic Republic of Congo, are able to sleep in their homes in peace, are able to be safe. And I'm thinking, what? You can't do that at your own home. Your soldiers cannot guarantee your people that. But they're supposed to go offer protection and ensure the people in the Democratic Republic of Congo are able to be safe and sleep in their homes in peace. But your soldiers can't guarantee that back at home. So that is the paradox of the whole thing. So anyway, but good luck with them. So they're waiting to be cleared, and their papers are being processed in the border there in Mundri, the border between Democratic Republic of Congo and Western Equatorial State. So anyway, so let's look at another attack that happened in Nigeria. I think this is now, before you get back to the Somali story, because that is what really I want us to talk about. Now, this attack that happened again over the weekend in Nigeria. So these criminals, this gunmen walked into a train station, and these people, these Nigerians, were waiting to board a train to go to, you know, this train was going to Southern Edo State, according to this news. So the train was coming from Egweben, and it was going to Wari in the neighboring Delta State. And so this attack happened on a train station in Southern Edo State. Now, I've explained here before that we had such insecurities in this country when Al-Shabab had really, I think, sworn to terrorize this country. So they were attacking any public space that they felt people were there. They were targeting churches. We saw a few attacks in the malls. I think the Westgate attack is still very fresh in our minds. Gave me a phobia. I even fear going to malls nowadays. But I know the security operators in this country are alert, and they've worked on that, and there's no reason for anybody to fear to go anywhere in this country. They were attacking public vehicles, public service vehicles, and any other soft targets that they could get. So what the government did in return is to beef up security, especially in public areas. So you just can't walk inside a mall nowadays. You have to go through checks that never used to exist. But we had to adjust, and we were meant to realize that it's not business as usual, and security and how they operate had to be relooked, and we've seen that. So when you enter a mall or when you go to any public space, you were safe. And our churches, every Sunday, I know my church, normally when I walk in, you can see over nearly 10 police officers just around patrolling, others from the entrance, others just within and across the compound, and many other churches, because it became a requirement to ensure while you're inside worshiping, you don't have to worry. While you're inside your mosque worshiping, you don't have to worry. You can worship and go home in peace. So we saw that was the response by the government, and that really helped in deterring. And those cases went down because they know that should they plan an attack in such and such a place, there are possibilities that security officers are there, and those attacks might be thwarted. Every now and then they get away, like the last one you saw at Dusit. But still, I think the security apparatus in this country has done a great job in responding to these security threats that have been brought about by this extremist group, Al-Shabab. Now back to Nigeria. The reason why a whole train station does not have security apparatus, that gunmen will just walk in and kidnap 32 people and go with them and shoot others who are trying to run away. The reason why they don't have security apparatus in these public spaces, I think, baffles me. I don't understand how the government and the security apparatus in Nigeria will continue acting as if it is business as usual, while they have seen heightened insecurity, attacks on civilians, attacks in public spaces, attacks even, I think a couple of weeks ago, they even went and attacked them at a hospital, and they attacked a nursery where this, children who were born prematurely, I don't know, they went away with 10 kids or something like that. Can you imagine the brazenness, the audacity? And they do that because they know they can get away. The government of Nigeria has refused to work on strategies and means in which they can respond effectively to the insecurity in Nigeria. So I think at this point, maybe the only hope for Nigerians is perhaps when the new administration comes in after they go for the elections next year, their hope is perhaps they will handle the issue of insecurity differently. Because at this point, I don't understand how a gunman can walk in a train station and kidnap 32 people. Do you not have security officers? At the other time, they derailed a train that was also, I can't remember it was flying from where, and kidnapped a host of many other people. We have trains in this country, and these trains, there's no way a train in Kenya will leave a station without police officers being inside the train. Even before we knew about terror attacks, even early, the trains we had, before, even the rise of terrorism, we had that. So right now it has only been beefed up. And when you're inside the trains, you will see the police officers patrolling. So how you would have a train plying a very dangerous route that you already know, leave and carry this amount of number of people, and then they go there without security? Nigeria, you have to be joking. Security apparatus in Nigeria, I don't get that. You can't just continue acting as if things are normal. Why, you're dealing with a very amorphous, extremist group like Al-Shabab and other sleeper cells of ISIL and other, groups. And then you don't do anything to try to effectively respond to that problem. So I think the government of Nigeria is complacent as far as the insecurity in Nigeria is concerned, because surely you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that put security officers in public spaces, because those are the soft targets by these people. That is something that the government would have. You don't need any strategies to tell you that. That is something that you should have already have thought through and ensured that every place, every public space, there are security apparatus there to man security. In case of an emergency, they can respond. And in case even they're overwhelmed, it can't be to an extreme that you get so many people being kidnapped and being murdered. I think it's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. All right, so let's just get into Somalia very quickly and then I'll be done. Now, the president was speaking after a service. This happened on Friday. I know it happened on Friday, but I thought the content of that news item were very important that I want us to look at. So, the president was speaking after a service last Friday, as I've said, and of course he's calling for the young men who have been recruited to Al-Shabab to surrender. But that is not the meat of the story. What caught my attention is what the Prime Minister also said in the same day, in the same place they were together. Somalia's Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Bare, who said that investigations are underway into soldiers who were arrested on suspicion of facilitating the Al-Shabab attack on the Villa Reyes Hotel in Mogadishu late November. Remember, we had this conversation here. We were talking about after the attack just happened that claimed the lives of 13 people, including 5 Al-Shabab fighters. They held that hotel in for quite a number of times, and we're wondering where were the security officers, what happened. And now, from what the Prime Minister is saying, there is a possibility that there are some soldiers there, I guess, who are Al-Shabaab sympathizers, who coordinated and facilitated and helped the Al-Shabaab to attack that hotel successfully. Because the last time we were having this conversation, one of the panelists we had that day, Miss Omar, she joins us in every now and then, and she has very good understanding of that place, and she was explaining to us that it is one of the highly guarded places, so you just can't access like that. So the fact that somebody was able to actually access, the Al-Shabaab were able to access this place and cause the kind of chaos they caused and kill the amount of people they killed, that meant it had to be an inside job. And now the Prime Minister is saying there is a possibility, because they're investigating, and every soldier that was in charge that day was arrested on suspicion that there's a possibility one of them, or maybe somebody else, but within the security apparatus in Somalia, facilitated the Al-Shabaab to carry out this attack in Mogadishu. I think this is very disheartening, especially for the countries who have availed their soldiers to go into Somalia to try and help them stabilize that country. And even as ATMIS is just working towards, I think, the end of this year, they're meant to be leaving. So they're meant to help in equipping and training the Somali forces so that they can leave the security apparatus in their hands as they exit Somalia. That was the agreement. But if some of the soldiers now in Somalia are Al-Shabaab sympathizers and are the ones who are working to defeat the purpose of ATMIS in that country, are the ones acting in support of the same enemy that they're meant to be fighting, then President Mahmoud has a very difficult task ahead of him. I think he has a very difficult task ahead of him. Now, still staying with the same Somalia, the government, apparently, somebody came out from the government, an official, and said that the country, that Somalia government and Al-Shabaab militant group were having peace talks. What peace talks are you having with the terrorist group? But the government was so quick, came out, and also Al-Shabaab militant, they came out and said, no, we're not talking to Villa Somalia. In fact, they said, talking to Villa Somalia or having a dialogue with the Villa Somalia is more dangerous than the weapons of mass destruction. So they're saying that is something that they will never do. Now, a senior government official later denied receiving a request from the militant group, because the militant group has also denied the existence of any talks with the Somali government. And a website affiliated with the Al-Shabaab said the Deputy Defense Minister's claim. So this was a Deputy Defense Minister. Deputy Defense Minister is the one who came out in public and said that the government was having talks with Al-Shabaab. So that is a person in a position of authority and whose words should not be taken lightly. That's what I would say. Now, in January 2018, the group's spokesperson, Ali Mohammed Rage, known as Ali Dere, said dialogue is more dangerous, like I've said there. And in the current, during that statement, another, Hussein Sheikh, the National Security Advisor, said that we have not received any request from the group. The minister said he was misquoted. What? And then he continues to say that our policy towards talks with Al-Shabab remains the same. We aren't negotiating with them as a group. However, see, individuals who wish to leave the group will undergo a thorough process to defect. The eligible for government amnesty formally. So you can't say you're not talking to Al-Shabab and yet you're talking to Al-Shabab. Are you talking to Al-Shabab Somali government or not? Now, if your deputy defense minister is saying you're engaging with Al-Shabab, and then you're denying, this official is denying the National Security Advisor, NSA, and this institution has been very controversial, especially some of the accusations that it has been leveled against it when it comes to Al-Shabab. He's saying they're negotiating with individual Al-Shabab. So basically, you were talking to the Al-Shabab and saying for those who were willing to abandon their ideology and go through a thorough process to defect and be eligible for a government amnesty formally. So you're working on that. So that is something that you're working on. And why are you denying that you're not talking to the Al-Shabab? Whether you're reaching out to individual Al-Shabab or you're reaching out to the institution of, to the leadership of Al-Shabab, it is an institution on its own. It's a non-actor, non-state actor. So the fact remains that you're talking to the Al-Shabab. Now, I don't see how a deputy defense minister will just wake up one morning and make such statements that are quite grave, not knowing the impact they might hold, and then you just want to come out and tell us that he was misquoted. Somalia's government, what is going on in the fight against Al-Shabaab? And I think that is a question that other stakeholders needs to probe further. And when you add to the admission by the Prime Minister that there could be some elements within the security forces in Al-Shabaab that aided and facilitated that attack that happened in November, then something is amiss and things are not adding up. And perhaps we shall have this conversation in full some other time. So for right now, just allow me to put a button on it. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.